Queen Elizabeth I was more than just a monarch, she was a living legend. She referred to herself as the Virgin Queen. Adorned in extravagant dresses embellished with jewels, she governed with a keen intellect and a firm hand. Her legacy includes her formidable court, which triumphed over the Spanish Armada and established England as a dominant Protestant nation. However, beneath the layers of beauty and authority, concealed by thick makeup and gleaming pearls, lay a woman plagued by fear, pride, and obsession. She was profoundly concerned with her public image. When it came to personal cleanliness, her practices were quite peculiar. In that era, hygiene was less about health and more about appearance. Queen Elizabeth transformed cleanliness into a theatrical display. She believed that water could harm her health. Her fear of aging led her to treat her body as something sacred, untouchable by time or even soap. In this video, we will reveal 5 of the most bizarre and astonishing methods Queen Elizabeth I employed to maintain her cleanliness. The final revelation will astonish you. Elizabeth had a significant addiction: sugar. During her time, sugar was a luxury not accessible to everyone. It was rare, costly, and imported from distant lands. Most individuals might never have tasted it in their lives. Yet, for the Queen of England, sugar was ubiquitous. She did not merely indulge in sweets, she was engulfed by them. Her royal banquets featured candied violets, sugar-coated fruits, sweet almond marzipan, and desserts drenched in syrup. Possessing sugar was a symbol of status. Elizabeth did not just consume it, she utilized it to showcase England's burgeoning power and affluence. However, the shocking reality is that this sugary obsession came at a significant price. In the 1500s, dental hygiene was rudimentary. Toothbrushes were coarse, and most individuals resorted to using twigs, rags, or crushed eggshells to clean their teeth. The Queen, however, had her own unique blend, a homemade toothpaste composed of sugar and herbs. Indeed, sugar. The very substance that was causing her dental decay was the same one she employed in an attempt to clean her teeth. To exacerbate the situation, she also utilized abrasive powders that eroded her tooth enamel. As time passed, her once regal smile transformed into something quite alarming. Foreign visitors took note of it. By the 1590s, her teeth had become black, broken, or entirely absent. It was said that her breath was so unpleasant it caused discomfort to those around her, and at times, her speech was difficult to comprehend due to the decay in her mouth. Nevertheless, she was adamant about not allowing doctors to extract them. Elizabeth was reputed to be obstinate and fearful of pain. To persuade her that it was not fatal, one of her courtiers even volunteered to have a tooth removed in her presence. Just imagine that. Someone willingly screaming in pain merely to encourage the Queen to open her mouth. Yet, perhaps the most peculiar aspect was what transpired next. Instead of ridiculing her deteriorating teeth, the noblewomen in her court emulated them. Indeed, they darkened their own teeth with soot and charcoal to replicate the Queen's appearance. In her court, even dental decay became a mark of status. If the Queen possessed blackened teeth, then such teeth signified beauty, authority, and affluence. The darker your smile, the wealthier you were presumed to be. In a society where every action of the Queen set trends, even decaying teeth became fashionable. That illustrates the influence of royalty. You may have encountered the startling quote, "I bathe once a month whether I need it or not." Some claim that Queen Elizabeth I actually uttered it. Others suggest it is merely a myth. Regardless, it reflects the perceptions of hygiene in the 1500s and how peculiar they were in comparison to contemporary standards. At that time, water was regarded as perilous. People thought it could transmit illness, weaken the body, and allow harmful air to enter, which they referred to as miasma. This unseen toxin was held responsible for the spread of fatal diseases such as the plague. For many, bathing was considered unhealthy. It posed a risk. Consequently, Queen Elizabeth refrained from it. Rather than cleansing herself with soap and water, she followed a different regimen. She would change her linen undergarments, known as shifts, sometimes multiple times a day. People believed that the delicate fabric absorbed sweat, dirt, and toxins from the skin. No water was necessary, only fresh fabric. When she did refresh herself, she utilized rose water, vinegar, or herbal concoctions prepared by her royal apothecaries. These were gently applied to her skin by handmaids. It was a slow, meticulous ritual, not for hygiene, but for the sake of appearances. Her body was regarded more as a sacred object than as a human being. It had to remain flawless at all costs. Why not simply take a proper bath? Because it was no trivial endeavor. Her palaces lacked plumbing and running water. If she desired a bath, it entailed hauling out a large wooden tub, heating numerous buckets of water, and summoning at least 3 servants to pour, stir, and prepare. It resembled the planning of a royal ceremony. Bathing was a luxury, not a routine. Yet, people considered her clean. She donned hundreds of gowns crafted from fine silk and velvet. She exuded the fragrance of flowers and spices. She possessed perfumed gloves, scented handkerchiefs, and insisted that her appearance be impeccable from head to toe. However, all of this created an illusion of cleanliness, rather than true sanitation. There was no scrubbing, no rinsing, and no soap. Elizabeth did not refrain from bathing due to dirtiness or laziness. She avoided it because an excess of reality could tarnish her flawless image. Water had the potential to smudge her white makeup. It could diminish the illusion. It could render her human. In her perspective, a queen was not meant to be human. Queen Elizabeth's visage is among the most renowned in history. White as porcelain, smooth like a statue, and cold as stone. However, that was not her true skin. It was a mask meticulously applied each day, not for the sake of beauty, but for the sake of power. In her era, pale skin signified wealth, class, and even divine favor. The paler one was, the higher one ranked. Thus, the queen took it to the extreme. She did not merely wear makeup, she utilized it to construct a myth, a flawless version of herself that could never age or weaken. Her preferred product, Venetian Susi, was a lethal combination of white lead and vinegar. It produced a perfect appearance, concealing every blemish, scar, and shadow. Yet beneath it all, it was consuming her from within. This toxin seeped into her skin, resulting in rashes, open sores, and lasting scars. As her true face was gradually ruined, she simply applied more layers of makeup, thicker and thicker, until her visage became a frozen mask. But it did not end there. For her lips, she employed vibrant red hues derived from mercury, one of the most poisonous substances on the planet. The more she applied it, the more ill she became. Her mood fluctuated, her memory diminished, her body weakened, and her hands occasionally trembled. These are classic indicators of mercury poisoning. And the queen remained oblivious to the fact that she was poisoning herself with each application of makeup. So why persist in this practice? Because her face was not solely her own. It belonged to England. Her image was her power. It rendered her ageless, godlike, and untouchable. She did not permit painters to depict her true features. Instead, artists were required to use official facial templates replicated from younger portraits. Regardless of how old she became, her paintings remained unchanged, youthful, flawless, everlasting. She even declined to be seen in natural light. Candles and shadows assisted in concealing the truth. In her later years, her face became so fragile that people murmured that touching it could cause the makeup to shatter and disintegrate. She seldom washed her face. Why would she? Washing it implied erasing the illusion and exposing a delicate, aging woman beneath the facade of the Virgin Queen. Did she realize the makeup was harming her? Historians continue to debate this, but one fact is evident. She preferred the mask over her well-being. She was prepared to ruin her body to preserve the legend of Gloriana. To genuinely comprehend Queen Elizabeth's hygiene, one must grasp her deepest fear. Losing control. Every part of her body, her painted visage, perfumed gloves, and meticulously selected scents was not merely about aesthetics. It was about maintaining power and concealing vulnerability. In her era, bathing was not only uncommon. It was perilous. People believed that water could transmit disease, and bathing meant exposing one's body both physically and symbolically. It was perceived as soft, intimate, and even hazardous. And Elizabeth, who had witnessed her mother, and Boleyn, be destroyed by the court, would not permit herself to appear weak. To her, a bare body was a defenseless body. Thus, she evaded water and created a new standard of cleanliness, one composed of perfume and ritual. Each day, she enveloped herself in strong, sweet fragrances. Her attendants prepared rose water, lavender oil, vinegar infusions, and herbal concoctions brewed in the palace's still rooms. These liquids were not intended to cleanse the skin, they were intended to mask unpleasant odors and create an impression of freshness. A few drops applied behind the ears, a swipe on the wrists, and a fragrant handkerchief discreetly placed in her sleeve allowed her to glide through her court like a living flower garden, impervious to human scent. She carried pomanders, small decorative spheres filled with herbs and resins, concealed within her attire or affixed to her belt. Whenever an unpleasant smell approached too closely, she would raise one to her nose and inhale the controlled environment she had crafted. These items served a purpose beyond mere comfort. They conveyed a distinct message: I am different from you. I do not carry the odor of the world around me. Even her garments contributed to this performance. Her gloves were infused with fragrance, her handkerchief saturated with oils, and her dresses were layered and rigid, designed to obscure her body and retain scent. She was known to distribute scented gloves to her courtiers, a gift that emanated not from her skin, but from her carefully curated image. Regarding her hair, it was seldom washed. Cleansing it was considered perilous, particularly for someone who applied so much makeup. Instead, her natural hair was stiffened with a mixture of sugar water and egg whites, then dusted with powder. As she aged and began to experience hair loss, likely due to prolonged exposure to lead and mercury, she transitioned to wigs, particularly auburn ones, to maintain her appearance. However, beneath all that powder and perfume, her body was deteriorating. Years of toxic cosmetics had left her skin scarred, fragile, and blistered. Rumors circulated about peeling skin, open sores, and a face too damaged to be touched. Yet, she continued to apply makeup thicker and thicker. She even prohibited mirrors in her private quarters. No one was permitted to witness the reality, not even herself. It was said that she had a servant whose sole responsibility was to powder her shoulders in private, ensuring that no one ever glimpsed her true skin. Elizabeth had become a captive of her own deception. Bathing was not merely neglected due to its difficulty, it was avoided because it entailed removing the facade. To cleanse the body was to acknowledge its aging, deterioration, and humanity. Elizabeth had dedicated her entire life to persuading the world that she was more than merely human. In her later years, she carried a fragrant walking stick. When she encountered foul-smelling courtiers, she would lift it to her nose, not only to shield herself from the stench but also to remind everyone, I am the queen. I do not belong to your realm. Her body had transcended mere flesh and bone, it had become a representation of the crown. It had to remain flawless, even if it required sacrificing the truth beneath. For Elizabeth, cleanliness was not synonymous with health. It was about remaining untouchable. Externally, the palaces of Queen Elizabeth of Fura appeared to be a paradise on earth. Enormous stone walls, gilded ceilings, luxurious carpets, and corridors filled with music and silk. However, take a single step beyond the royal facade, and one would discover a reality far less glamorous. There were no toilets, no sinks, no plumbing. Indeed, behind all the splendor, the queen resided in an environment that reeked of sewage. Her most private toilet was an ornate wooden chair known as a close stool. It appeared sophisticated on the surface, but beneath the cushion lay merely a ceramic pot for collecting waste. This pot had to be emptied by hand, cleaned, and perfumed several times a day, and it was not a servant who performed this task. It was executed by someone of royal standing, the groom of the stool. Do not be misled by the job title, this individual was no mere janitor. He was a trusted noble, selected for his loyalty and discretion. He not only assisted the queen in using the toilet but also aided her in dressing, managing private affairs, and occasionally engaged in confidential political discussions that in the peculiar realm of the Tudor court, proximity to the queen during her most intimate moments signified closeness to authority, yet the remainder of the palace was far more repulsive. There were no flushing toilets, instead, chamber pots, buckets, or bowls for waste were utilized by all. These were disposed of in cesspits concealed beneath floors or just outside the palace walls. The responsibility of cleaning this waste fell to individuals known as gong farmers or night soil men. They toiled at night, transporting buckets of human waste through dimly lit corridors and narrow staircases, striving to avoid spills as they emptied the refuse into open trenches. The stench was unbearable, and it never truly dissipated. To mask it, the palace burned herbs such as lavender, rosemary, and sweet marjoram. Individuals scattered flowers across the floors and laid down straw or rushes soaked in oils in an attempt to capture the odor. However, these rushes were infrequently cleaned. Accumulations of dirt, hair, crumbs, and decay formed beneath, creating a concealed layer of grime. Even the queen was not immune to the foul smell. She relocated her court from palace to palace, not solely for political reasons, but to evade the odor. The longer she remained in one location, the more severe the waste issue became. No quantity of perfume could conceal the reality indefinitely. This was the authentic visage of royal existence, a world adorned with gold and velvet on the surface, yet plagued by decay and disease beneath. A domain where power coexisted with filth, where the most influential woman in England contended perpetually with the stench of her own realm. Queen Elizabeth did not ascend to power by mere chance. She governed with strategy, elegance, and illusions. Her approach to hygiene was not negligent, it was deliberate. Each omitted bath, every drop of rose water, and every powdered wig constituted a part of a grand spectacle. In a society where a woman's strength could be dismantled by a single rumor, Elizabeth transformed herself into something untouchable, ageless, and beyond the realm of humanity. She understood the reality. To bathe was to jeopardize the facade. Water had the potential to wash away her authority. A bare face may provoke judgment. An aging body could shatter the illusion she had meticulously crafted over decades. Therefore, she opted for powder. She applied perfume. She adorned herself with makeup. She posed, and thus, she became a legend. Elizabeth I may not have met today's cleanliness standards, yet she was impeccable by design. In her era, soap and water were not regarded as instruments of health. Instead, they were seen as threats to power. She did not merely survive, she excelled in the art of being visible without revealing her true self. Ultimately, her genuine cleanliness was not on her exterior. It resided in her image. And for a queen, image was